All right. Welcome back. We are on Unit 4 of our ACT Prep. The Unit 4 is going to be on intermediate algebra topics, and Day 1 is going to be solving inequalities. Okay, so solving inequalities is like solving equations, except when you multiply or divide by a negative number, it reverses the inequality sign. So to solve an inequality, you follow the same steps that you do for solving an equation. It's just that if you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality sign. Okay, so this one, they want you to multiply both sides by -1, but we're just going to go ahead and solve this. You're trying to get x alone. So to get x alone, I need to divide by -4 to both sides. That will cancel, drop the x, but because I'm dividing by a negative, this guy turns around. So instead of greater than or equal to, it's going to be less than or equal to -7/4. Okay, number 2, I have -x over 6 is less than -4. You can do this two ways. When you have a fraction that's negative, they put the negative right here in the middle. That means the whole fraction's negative. Well, I could either write that as -x over +6, or I could write it +6 over -x, or you can put the negative in the middle. All three of these things positive x over -6, sorry, I don't know why I'm flipping it over. Or you could keep it in the middle, okay? When a fraction is negative, you can put it on top or on bottom, or keep it in the middle. All three of these things mean the same thing. So I'm going to put my negative down there, and then I'm going to multiply, because that's division. So to undo dividing by -6, I'm going to multiply by -6 on both sides. But when you multiply both sides by a negative, that inequality flips. -4 times -6 is +24. Okay, here they put the letter on the wrong side. It doesn't matter. Wherever the letter is, that's where your fight is. So to get x alone, I'm going to get rid of multiplying by -3. So I'm going to divide by -3. 9 divided by -3 is -3, but dividing by a negative flips the inequality. Those cancel, and I get this. Now, if you're going to write this properly, you can't just switch x and -3 and leave this the same way. Your statement at the end has to say that x is less than or equal to -3. So when you rewrite it, you got to flip it. Okay? All right, divide both, or this one, we're solving this one. We have -7x plus 42 less than or equal to y. If we're trying to get x alone, okay, they're telling you to divide both sides by -7, which I would never do on the first thing. I would actually, to get x alone, I would -42, -7x less than or equal to y is less than, or -42. Subtracting does not flip it. Now, to get x alone, I'd have to divide by -7. And that would give me x. Now I'm dividing by a negative, so that's going to flip it. This is going to be -1/7 y, or y over 7. And this is going to be a +6. And that would be getting my x alone. Okay? Alright, so if we solve this, to get x alone, I'm going to -15, that gives me x less than 23 minus 15 is 8. I don't have to flip the inequality because I'm subtracting, not multiplying or dividing. Here's my x over here. To get rid of subtracting 19, I'm going to add 19 to both sides. That gives me x greater than or equal to, adding obviously doesn't flip it, and 12 plus 19 is 31. Done. Alright, on this one, again, we have that negative in the middle. I'm going to put it on the bottom because I know I've got to get rid of that division anyway. So I'm going to multiply by -8. Multiplying by a negative on both sides will flip it, and 7 times -8 is -56. Okay, so to solve this one, to get k alone, I'm going to divide by -8. That flips the inequality, and this is going to be -70 over 8, which I could reduce by 2, which would give me k is greater than or equal to -4/35. Or if you're answers are in decimals, you'd pick the decimal equivalent to that. Okay? Alright, so let's solve some more here. Alright, to get t alone here, I'm going to have to do two things. So first I'm going to undo the subtracting 8.5, and I'm going to add 8.5. That gives me negative 5t less than 54 plus 8.5 is 62.5. Now to get t alone, I'm going to divide by negative 5, which is going to flip my inequality, and I get t here less than, or I mean greater than, negative 12.5. Okay, on this bottom one, I don't like the way they write this, so I'm going to write it k divided by 8 plus 3.4 greater than negative 28. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the adding first, so I'm going to minus 3.4. That gives me k over 8. I multiplied by, no, sorry. You can't, I mean, yeah, I'm just looking at my paper here. You could, I guess it doesn't really matter, subtract the 3.4 first, but anytime you have a fraction, and we all hate fractions, you can always get rid of it. It was the same thing we did before. You're dividing by 8, so to undo that, I multiply by 8. The only rule is I have to do it to every term. So the 8s would cancel, leaving k alone. Well, not alone, but 8 times 3.4 is 27.2, greater than negative 28 times 8 is negative 224. So now all I have to do to get k alone is subtract 27.2, and I get k is greater than negative 251.2. Okay, on this one, we have x's on both sides, so I'm going to move this one over. So I'm going to subtract x. That gives me negative 4x minus 4 greater than or equal to 5, because that x is gone. So now to get x alone, I'm going to add 4. I got negative 4x greater than or equal to 9. And to undo multiplying by negative 4, I'm going to divide by negative 4, which gives me x. Dividing by a negative flips my inequality, and I have negative 9/4. Or whatever that is as a decimal, if they wanted a decimal. Okay? Alright, now I'm going to show you how to do these on the calculator, but like I said, this took a lot less time than it's going to take me to do it on a calculator, but you can do it. So I'll show you how. Same problems. And what I did is I type in this side for y1 and this side for y2. Okay, so I typed negative 5x. You don't use t, you got to use x. Negative 5x minus 8.5, and the other side I said is 54. So when I graph that, alright, I had to pick my window. Okay, I didn't want you guys to have to sit and mess with finding, and that's another thing about using the calculator on these. By the time the hardest part about using the calculator on solving equations is setting the window so that you see the right graph. If I just did a standard window, I wouldn't see what I needed to see. So I had to play around a little bit and mess with my window dimensions so that I could get, where's my picture? So I could get a good picture, okay? There's the negative 5t minus 8.5. There's the 54 line, okay? Where they intersect, okay? Where they intersect is going to be where the starting point of your answer is, okay? What did we get? We got negative 12.5. So how did we get negative 9.57? Oh, I know. Oh, that was my first curve. Sorry. You got to do first curve, second curve. My bad. Okay, so I graphed both of these. There they are. And then I'm going to calculate the intersection point. And it's going to ask you for first curve, second curve, and then guess. So first curve, you can tell up here it's on the line because it tells you. So I hit enter. And then it says second curve. So I hit enter again. It moved it up here to the other line. I hit enter for the second curve. And then I hit enter again. I don't want to guess. So I hit enter again, and there's my intersection point, which was negative 12.5, which is what we got when we did it together. However, that you can't, the answer isn't x equals negative 12.5. Okay, they want to know when is the line less than, when is the slanted line smaller than this line. Well, up until this point, the line is the 5t minus 8.5 is higher. We want to know when is that line smaller. Well, that's over here, which is everything greater than, everything greater than 12.5. So like I said, to me, doing it by hand was a lot simpler than doing it on the calculator, but you can. Alright, I'll show you 2 on the calculator. So I have x divided by 8 plus 3.4 for y1. I have negative 28 for y2. I set my window. Again, that's a pain in the butt. You got to play around until you can see them intersect each other. Okay, so then I did first curve, second curve. I just didn't show all the first curve and second curve. I just went straight to here. And the intersection was at negative 251.2, which is what we got when we did it by hand. But again, you got to figure out, it's not x equals. You got to figure out 251, is it greater than or less than? Well, they want to know, this is going to be the slanted line, this is going to be the horizontal line, this one is your 28, negative 28, and this one is your k divided by 8 plus 3.4. So what they want to know is when is the slanted line bigger than the negative 28. So up until here, the slanted line is lower. After this point, it's higher. So it's from this point on. So it's greater than negative 251.2. Okay, and number 3, again, I'll show you on the calculator. I typed in negative 3x minus 4 on one side and 5 plus x on the other. These are going to be 2 slanted lines. And I used a standard window on this one. And I got my intersection point. Okay, there's my 3x minus 4. And there's my 5 plus x. They intersect at negative 2.25, which is negative 9/4, which is what we got. So you have x and negative 9/4, or negative 2.25. But again, you got to figure out, if you're going to do it by graphing, you got to figure out which way your inequality goes. Well, they want to know when is this line, the negative 3x minus 4, bigger than this one. Well, it's bigger than this one right here, which is from this point that way, which means its x is less than or equal to negative 9.4. Again, interesting to do it on the calculator, but in my opinion, it was a whole lot more work to do it on the calculator than it is just to do it by hand. Okay, especially in a time situation. Alright, so try this one. Hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got D. Alright, so to get x alone here, I'm going to minus 5. That gives me 2x greater than or equal to 8. Divide by 2. That gives me x is greater than or equal to 4. Done. Again, you can do it on the calculator, but you're going to type this in for y1, 13 for y2, set a window where you can see it, and my intersection point, you can tell, is at 4. But then you still have to do all the work to figure out which way your inequality goes on the graph. They want to know when the slanted line is bigger than the horizontal line, which is from this point on, which means greater than or equal to. And then you got to pay attention to, do you include the point or not? Okay. Alright, you try this one, hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got negative 7. What is the smallest number in the solution set to the inequality? So first we have to solve it. Well, I've got x's on both sides, so I'm going to move this x over by adding 2x to both sides. That gives me negative 2x minus 5 less than or equal to positive 9. To get rid of the minus 5, I'm going to add 5. That gives me negative 2x less than or equal to 14. And I'm going to divide by a negative 2, which gives me x is greater than or equal to negative 7. Now, to answer the question, what this says is I can include negative 7 because of the bar, and anything greater. So negative 7, negative 6, negative 5, 10, 300, those would all be solutions, okay? And what they want to know, what is the smallest number that's in the solution set? Well, the smallest is the most left, which is negative 7. Okay? Oops. And again, I did it on the calculator, and you get the negative 7. But again, you got to decide which way your inequality is going, okay? Because we ended up having to flip here. So, like I said, I'm not saying you can't do it on the calculator. I'm just saying by the time you type it in, find a window where you can see everything, and then you have to figure out which way the inequality goes from the original statement. It was faster just to do it by hand. Alright, so let's practice. Alright, so on this one, to get x alone, I'm going to minus 9. I get x is greater than 4. And I don't have to flip anything or nothing like that. I'm going to try and graph them for you just so you guys can get, when we start doing absolute value ones, you're going to have to look at the graph of these to figure out the solution. So this would say I can not include 4, so that's going to be an open circle, and then everything to the right. So 4 is not actually a solution, but anything bigger than 4, even 4.000009, okay, would be a solution. So 4, 5, 4.2, 8.7, 389, those would all be solutions in this inequality. Okay, so number 2, to get x alone, I'm going to undo minus 13, so I'm going to add 13 to both sides. That gives me x is less than or equal to 35. If I graph that, that means at 35, the bar means I can include, so 35 is a solution, and any number smaller than that is also a solution. Anything you plug in smaller than 35 will give you something less than 22. Okay? On 3, to get rid of negative 3, I'm going to divide by negative 3, which will flip my inequality. That gives me y, and this is negative 7/3. So if I graph that, negative 7/3 would get a closed circle because I'm including it, and any number bigger than that would be a solution to my inequality. Alright, here they put the negative on the outside, and in parentheses, same thing. You can put that negative wherever you want. So since I know I'm going to have to get rid of the negative and the 6, I'm putting it on the bottom and getting rid of them at the same time. So to get rid of dividing by negative 6, I'm going to multiply by negative 6. And that gives me y is greater than negative 66. No, it's not. Haha, I just trucked myself. I'm dividing by a negative, which flips the inequality. So I'd have negative 66. I can't include it. 66 not actually a solution, but anything smaller than that will work. Okay, number 5, I'm going to get rid of plus 6 with minus 6. That gives me negative 4t less than or equal to 3. Then I'm going to divide by negative 4, which will flip my inequality, and I get t is greater than negative 3/4. So negative 3/4 is a solution because of the or equal to, and anything bigger than that would also be a solution. Okay? Alright, on 6, again, the first thing I noticed was the fraction, and I don't like fractions. So I kill the fraction by multiplying everything by 8. That cancels it out and gives me k minus, oh darn it, this time I didn't multiply first. This time I got rid of the negative 2.4 first. So I added 2.4 to both sides, which gave me k over 8 greater than 14.4. Now I killed them. So like I was telling you earlier, it doesn't really matter what order you do that in. So I'm going to get rid of the dividing by 8 with multiplication by 8, which cancels it and leaves me k. I don't have to flip because I'm not multiplying by a negative, and I get 115.2, which would mean all of my answers, I can't actually include 115.2, but anything bigger than that would work. Okay? Alright, more practice. Alright, I've got, on 7, I've got x's on both sides, so the first thing I like to do is get them together, so I'm going to move this one over. So I'm going to minus 2x, which gives me negative 7x plus 6 less than or equal to negative 8. Subtracting 2x will not flip the inequality. Okay, so then I'm going to get rid of the plus 6 with minus 6. That gives me negative 7x less than or equal to negative 14. To get rid of multiplying by negative 7, I'm going to divide by negative 7. And I get x greater than, it will flip because I'm dividing by a negative. Negative 14 divided by negative 7 is positive 2. So I can include 2 in my solutions and anything bigger. Okay? Number 8, I got t's on both sides, so I'm going to move this t over. So minus 3t minus 3t. I get 7 plus t less than negative 2. So to get t alone, I'm going to minus 7, and I get t less than negative 9. So I cannot include negative 9, but anything smaller will be solutions. Okay? On 9, all I have to do is subtract 5. That gives me 2x less than negative 1. And I'm going to divide by 2. I don't have to flip because even though this side's going to end up negative, my 2 was not negative. What I divided by wasn't negative, so it does not flip. So this says that I cannot include negative 1/2, but anything smaller will work. Okay, number 10, to get rid of multiplying by negative 3, I'm going to divide by negative 3. Since I'm dividing by a negative, my inequality will flip. And that gives me x on this side, negative 3 on this side. And that means I can not include negative 3, but anything smaller will work. Okay, 11, to get x alone, I'm going to add 7. That gives me 2x greater than or equal to 19. To get rid of multiplying by 2, I'm going to divide by 2, and I get x is greater than or equal to 19/2, or 9.5, whatever that is, whatever that turns out to be. So I can include 19/2. That's actually a solution. So a closed circle to include it, and anything bigger will also be solutions. 12, I've got x's on both sides, so I'm going to move this one over. I'm going to subtract 3x. That gives me 4x minus 3 less than 1. To get x alone then, I'm going to add 3. I get 4x less than 4. Then I'm going to divide by 4, and I get x is less than 1. Which means I can't include 1, but anything smaller will be solution. Okay? Alright, 13. To get x alone, I'm going to minus 9 first, and that gets me negative 2x less than or equal to 13 minus 9 is 4. Yeah. And then divide by negative 2, which will flip my inequality, so I get x is greater than or equal to negative 2, which means I can include negative 2 and anything higher. Okay, on 14, I've got x's on both sides, so I'm going to move this one over, so minus 6x minus 6x. That gives me 10x minus 7 greater than or equal to 2. Now to get x alone, I'm going to add 7. And I get 10x greater than or equal to 9. Then I'm going to divide by 10, which gives me x is greater than or equal to 9/10. Which means I can include 9/10 and anything bigger in my answer. Okay, number 15. To get x alone, I'm going to minus 9. That gives me negative 4x greater than or equal to 27 minus 9 is 18. Then I'm going to divide by negative 4, which will flip my inequality. Cancels and gives me x, and this is going to be negative 18 over 4, which I can reduce by 2, which gives me x is less than or equal to negative 9/2. Which means I can include negative 9/2 because of the or equal to and anything smaller. Okay? Alright, and on 16 I have x's on both sides. I'm going to go this way just because I always do. I know a lot of people will move the negative because they don't like negatives, but I just always go the same way. So I'm going to minus 11x, minus 11x. I get negative 14x plus 7 greater than negative 2. To get x alone now, I'm going to minus 7. That gives me negative 14x greater than negative 9. Divide by negative 14. And I get x is, flip it, less than a positive 9/14, which means I cannot include 9/14, but I can include anything smaller than that. Okay? Alright, 17. I'm going to add 13 first. That gives me negative x greater than 15. Then I have to divide by a negative, which is really like a negative 1, which will flip my inequality, but that gives me positive x less than negative 15. So I do not get to include negative 15, but anything smaller is an answer, is a solution. Alright, 18. I got x's on both sides, so I'm moving this one over. Minus 35x, minus 35x. That gives me negative 8x minus 5 less than 3. And now I can get x alone, so I'm going to add 5 first. That gives me negative 8x less than 8. Divide by negative 8, which will flip the inequality and give me negative 1, which means I cannot include negative 1, but anything bigger would work. Okay, 19, I've got x's on both sides, so I'm going to move this one over with minus 6x minus 6x. That gives me 3x minus 5 less than or equal to 2. To get x alone, I'm going to add 5. I get 3x less than or equal to 7. Divide by 3, and x is less than or equal to 7/3. Which means I can include 7/3 because of the or equal to, and anything smaller would be solutions. And 20. We have x's on both sides. I always move over to the left. So minus 2x, that gives me negative 1x plus 3 less than negative 1. And now to get x alone, I'm going to minus 3. So I have negative x less than negative 4. Divide by negative 1. And I get x is greater than positive 4. Which means I can't include it, but anything bigger would be solutions. Okay? Alright, now you try. Hit pause, come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got C. Alright, to get x alone here, I'm going to divide by 4, which gives me x is greater than or equal to negative 3. I don't need to flip it because I didn't divide by a negative. I got a negative, but I didn't divide by a negative, so no flipping. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got K. Alright, to get x alone in this one, I'm going to add 7 first. That's going to give me negative 3x less than 27. Divide by negative 3. I get x. I have to flip because I divided by a negative, and that's going to be negative 9. Okay, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got D. Alright, to get x alone, I'm going to minus 17. That gives me negative 4x less than or equal to negative 20. To get x alone now, I'm going to divide by negative 4. Because I'm dividing by a negative, my inequality will flip, and negative 20 divided by negative 4 is positive 5. Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you have 5. Alright, which of the following is not in the solution set? Well, before we can figure out what's not in the solution set, we got to figure out what is in the solution set. I got x's on both sides, so I'm going to move this guy over by adding 2x. That's going to give me negative 3x plus 3 greater than negative 12. Then I'm going to minus 3, so negative 3x greater than negative 15. Then I'm going to divide by negative 3, which is going to flip my inequality and give me x is less than 5. What that means is I cannot include 5, but anything smaller is included. So 5 is not included. I just said I can't include 5. So that one is not in the solution set. Check the rest. If these are less than 5, which they are, those are solutions. Those are solutions. 5 is not included, so it is not. Okay, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 5/8. Alright, it says, which of the following is the reciprocal of the smallest number in the solution set? So we've got to find the solution set, get the smallest, and then flip it over. So I've got x's on both sides. I'm going to move this guy with adding 4x. That gives me negative 5x plus 11 less than or equal to 3. So now to get x alone, I'm going to minus 11. That gives me negative 5x less than or equal to negative 8. Divide by negative 5, which will flip my inequality and give me x on this side and a positive 8/5 on this side. What that means is I would start at 8/5 and include it and everything bigger. So the smallest number in this solution set is 8/5, and its reciprocal is, flip it over, 5/8. Okay? And we are done with day 1 of Unit 4, and I will see you next time for day 2.